Your Highnesses, Your Excellencies, esteemed experts, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the closing plenary of the annual meetings of the Global Future Councils and Cybersecurity. My name is David Bach. I'm president of IMD, a business school located in lovely Lausanne, just across the lake from the World Economic Forum headquarters in Geneva, and I'm absolutely delighted to moderate this panel in which we will try to identify some of the threads and common themes that have arisen in 3 days of intense discussion and conversation, and we'll also turn towards the future actions that we all must be taking to seize the opportunities of this moment. We started the annual meetings yesterday morning with World Economic Forum President and CEO Borge Brenda describing the challenges of this moment: geopolitical tensions, trade conflicts, uncertainty over the direction of rapidly changing technology, a planet in peril. And yet I personally feel, after the conversations I've been fortunate to attend, a great deal of optimism. I'd like to invite you all to share with us how you feel at the end of these conversations. We have several hundred experts in the room. We have benefited from the insights of over 1,000 participants. So on the screen in a moment, you'll see a QR code where you'll have the opportunity to enter one word that captures your experience this week. Let me emphasize the importance of one word, since this is a word cloud and we really want to capture your idea. So if you can enter one word, we'll see that on the screen. And you know how this word works. The more often a word gets mentioned, the bigger it becomes on the screen. So while that comes in, let me introduce our distinguished panel. Sitting next to me is Her Excellency Sarah Amiri, who is the Minister of Education of the United Arab Emirates. Welcome, Sarah. Next to Sarah, we have Penny Low, the founder of Social Innovation Park in Singapore. Welcome. Next to Penny is, where are you, Dario Genoa, who is the Secretary of Innovation, Science and Technology of Argentina. We're delighted to have Daniela Rus, who's the Director of Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory at MIT. And last but not least, we have Andrea Meza Murillo, who is the Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification. Sarah, if I can start with you. I think one reason why I think many of us feel inspired, certainly one reason why I feel optimism, is because of where we have met. This is a place that sees a lot of opportunity in the future. I live in Europe where there's a scarcity of optimism. You're responsible for education. How do you educate the next generation to be optimistic about the future, and how do you prepare them to seize the opportunities that are clearly in front of us?
So optimism is a very interesting word that I'm surprised I don't see it large there, but I think inspired and collaboration comes into light on its importance. Building a society that is not optimistic means that your judgment is clouded, driven by emotion, opportunities don't exist and are not seized. Building a generation who's optimistic about the future, even with its challenges, understanding of how to seize those challenges, and resilient in the skills that they have to adapt to a world that we don't know what it's going to look like down the line, is very important when it comes to education. What we're using as a cornerstone is first an understanding that the world that students that are currently in classrooms today are going to live in is going to be quite different than our world today. And we've made this general statement so many times, but it is ever more realistic in this day and age, that the jobs and the skills and the knowledge they require is unknown, and that the mechanism by which they will create impact in the world is unknown. What that means is that education is no longer a vessel to deliver knowledge, and only one to hone basic skills. It is a mechanism by which we can harness key skills, and I want to add something very important to this, and values, and an ethical system that will allow them and allow us collectively to work on addressing the challenges of the future and capturing on and ensuring that optimism remains the underlying factor of what makes us grow. This is why we are looking at how to evolve what education is, understanding truly what are the skills that each child requires depending on their age, and understanding again truly how do we harness the knowledge and skills and values to be able to create impact, ensure that they remain inspired, collaborative, and create a world that is better and more stable than what we see it today.
So skills and knowledge are important, but the mindset, looking optimistically at the future, seems to be just as important. And I'm glad that you mentioned values and ethics. There's so many questions facing us, particularly in terms of the direction of technology, the state of our planet. So we'll come back to some of those themes. Dario, if we can go halfway around the world to Argentina, you're leading efforts there to bring together talent, business, supportive public policy to drive innovation. Cybersecurity has been a really important issue. That's one that connects individuals, businesses, and governments. How do you think about the role of government in driving innovation and helping us make the most of the technologies and the opportunities in front of us?
Well, I will start grabbing the optimistic word. Yesterday on a panel, we've been almost accused of optimistic on the fight or fighting the war on cybersecurity because the bad guys are winning and we are struggling on defending ourselves and our companies and our states. Despite that, I believe that there is a lot of opportunities, and I am very optimistic on that. Not because I think that we are going to win on the final stage the war, but because there is a lot of work that we can do in order to protect ourselves and have a better development on the cybersecurity area. It's actually all about awareness. We have to know what is happening on the technology that we use every day. And that is so important because, for example, we actually don't know what is happening in our phones as we speak. We don't know if our phones are listening to us. We don't know if our phones are doing something that we actually don't know. We don't actually know the extent of the processes that are working and are running into our own phones. So that is so important that we don't actually realize what is happening in our lives that are supported by technology, but our lives are not only supported by technology. We have technology all around. If we don't have technology for, I don't even say 1 day, 1 hour, the world, it's kind of stop going. So that's one of the most important things that I can recall from these days here. And there is another thing that about driving the innovation and fostering the development of new companies. Every time that we say or we speak about science, we always speak about science with innovation. And there are two different concepts. Science is what is happening in the labs, what is happening in the laboratories, trying new things, making errors, trying again new things. And at the same time, every time that I'm developing something, I'm only in the lab. In Argentina, for example, we have a very challenging issue that we have to address, and it's that all our investigators, or many of them, think that if they start a startup with their own developments in the lab, they are selling their souls to the devil. And it's like, you cannot do that. You're an investigator, you should investigate. And that's a very important thing because when we grab that and we see science from one side and innovation on the other, there is a magic occurring in the middle that it's depending on a multidisciplinary approach that we need to take in account. Every time that we want to get out from the lab and generate a new startup, we need a lot of things. We need investment, we need a legal approach, we need an accountant approach, we need economic approach, we need marketing. We are developing a product. Innovation is a product. Science is what is occurring in the labs. So for foster that innovation, we need to bring together a lot of things in a meal, and we are working on that. In Argentina, we are working on developing all our investigators in order to give them new tools to go from the lab to the innovation, to the product.
So bringing different stakeholders together, thinking about new tools, that's very much what the Global Future Councils, of course, are all about. And we've had meetings of the councils, and Andrea, Penny, and Daniela, you represent to some extent the wealth of expertise in the conversations that were taking place. I was hoping you could each speak a little bit about the conversations you witnessed, the syntheses that you encountered, and perhaps we can start with you, Andrea. The area of nature and climate. What were some of the conversations like? What were some of the issues that were surfaced? What are concerns? What are reasons for optimism?
Thank you. I think it's first to acknowledge that we're living in a world with multiple crises. It's the climate crisis, nature, biodiversity crisis, it's the land and soils crisis, but it's also poverty, but it's also conflicts. So we need to come with integrated solutions. And we need to build resilient economies and resilient countries. And to do this, we need to have healthy nature. Coming to the basics of our systems, we need to have healthy oceans, we need to have healthy lands and soils to produce the food that we're going to eat, to guarantee that we will be having water, to guarantee that we can have a stability in many countries when we see the vicious cycle of land degradation, of droughts, heating in some places. This is an amplifier of conflicts as well. So it's really to understand, and I think that this is one of the main elements that came around the different aspects, is that to really do these transitions, it's not only a climate transition what we are trying to achieve. It's a transition to a safer and more stable world that can be prosperous. But to achieve this, we really depend on nature, on different areas, and that we can really then connect as well with technology. And technology will play a critical role in this transition as well, bringing solutions, shortening the price of a lot of solutions that are there as well. But in the other side, what we're seeing is as well the dependence, this transition on technology depends on nature as well. I was hearing in one of the tables a very interesting approach on what the data centers are doing in efficiency. This idea of doing more with less, it's wonderful, but it's also an invitation to try to see more the landscape as well, because we need water and we need infrastructure. So it's the way that we are treating our landscape as well, which becomes a very critical way to achieve these transitions.
So the primacy of nature, we can decide not to believe in the laws of nature, but they still exist and they still constrain us, right? The safe operating environment for us. Penny, you have been part of conversations on the global economy, the future of the global economy, the future of jobs in light of technological change. Can you share some impressions with us from those conversations?
Sure, David. I must first, give thanks to the World Economic Forum for bringing, the different councils, together with the cybersecurity committees, because I think it represents exactly where the world is today. That you cannot, go forward in silos. We need to come together. There needs to be a certain oneness and wholeness in the way that we approach issues. There needs to be collaboration right across each sector and each, in fact, the three Ps, people, public, and private sector. And it is in that light itself that in the output lab, which is the one that I went to, was the scenarios for the global economy, the future of jobs in 2030, that the output lab brought together actually 12, no fewer, but 12 GFCs to explore how rapid advancement in AI and talent trends might shape the future. And in particular, we were looking at 2030, but I think the conversation went way beyond that. There was quite clearly a lot of suggestions and strategies, but there was also, underlying all of it, a lot of uncertainties. Nobody could be, exact on where or predict, where the future might lie, but we have a rough sense of the trajectory of what this may mean, whether in 2030 there will be an abundance of talent or shortage, whether, at the advent of technology, especially AI, would be exponential in nature or, incremental in nature. We divide that into 4 quadrants, and we examine, what each quadrant looks like, what the narrative is, and also what would be some of the risks and opportunities that's available. In all of this, we also, had a backdrop of web survey of the chief strategy officers conducted in August 2025, where they cited that the commercialization of AI and emerging technologies will determine something like 72% of the main trends that will shape businesses, our business strategies, in the next 5 years. And it is also said that the fast-changing technologies, such as AI, robotics, others, are also creating a lot of new growth opportunities. What they really look like, is something that you can predict to a certain extent, but I think you have to watch and monitor and evaluate, at a much shorter time frame than the past. But what I also discovered in many of the conversations is that we find ourselves today in the hinge of history. In this very decade itself, technology is evolving faster than our capacity to even absorb it. For most of us in this hall, we are well informed and we have the privilege of accessing a lot of technologies, a lot of knowledge, information, and even, changing some of these things. But for the bulk of the population, it may not be so. So how do we then, formulate new policies, new investments that could be inclusive in nature, that could bring about more equity in the society, and also whether, we are even thinking about it. In short, my own sense is that we need to have a new narrative of the economy, new narrative of growth, really what growth really means, not just in the definition of the traditional financial GDP, but that includes nature, that includes mindfulness, well-being of the society, well-being of the economy, and so on. Because at the end of the day, the next frontier of innovation, in my mind, is not artificial intelligence, but it is in awakened intelligence. Because that is what will bring society forward and not just financial numbers.
Very good. All right. So a conversation that clearly went beyond economic growth and jobs narrowly conceived and considered the future of humanity and human flourishing. So a very broad agenda. Of course, many of us have invoked technology so far. Danielle, you're a technologist, and you can share with us some of the conversations about technology and digital security in particular. And after that, we'll open it up and we'll try to begin to pull everything together.
Thank you, David. So we had a really interesting and substantive conversation around cybersecurity. And we started by observing that the technology that connected the world also exposed it. And the digital transformation and the AI transformation, they are expanding opportunities, but they're also magnifying the risk. And in fact, as AI begins to move from the digital world into the physical world, we see increased risk. We see all the challenges that we have in the digital world and many more. Today, it is relatively easy to hack into a car. and switch the signals. And so you think you go left, but the car goes right. Imagine what this can do, what kind of chaos this could create in the world. And this is just a little example. But the group was also optimistic and noted that technology has created some of these problems, but technology can also be part of the solution, especially when connected with global efforts for coordination and global efforts for general education. So we really agreed that technology should be part of the solution, but this begins with people. We have to start with people, and we have to make the risks clear and understandable to people. We also have to understand how technology is evolving, and then deploy what works and identify the gaps and figure out what we're missing. And so, for instance, in this moment today, we're seeing extraordinary advancements in quantum computing. Well, the advancements in quantum computer mean that sometime in the not so distant future, in a few years, our passports won't work. And so what do we do? How can we prepare for that? So we need to deploy what works and figure out what is needed in order to address the gaps. And then we need to develop mechanisms for coordination across the globe because cybersecurity is not a local problem. It's not a local problem in multiple senses. It's not a local problem because it affects everyone. And also because the cyber criminals can be anywhere. They can be operating from the comfort of their couch, no matter where that couch is based. And so these were some really important themes that came out of the conversation. And another sort of exciting moment in the conversation came when the group identified some potential actions for moving forward. And so the group identified what is now known as the 7 Ps. And so the 7 Ps include protect. So we need the technologies to protect ourselves and our world. We need proficiency. That means people need to understand the cyber risk and they need to understand what can be done about it. Personalization, so that each company and each individual can deploy the right tools for their needs. Perception, let's see, we have perception, provenance, participation, payments. Ultimately, we need to find ways to support all the development that is required to support cybersecurity. And the optimistic point I want to make here is that for many of these big actions, we actually have technology that is either ready or about to be ready. And so, for instance, in the lab, we have developed a technique called homomorphic encryption. Now, this is a mouthful. It simply means you compute on encrypted data. That means nobody will ever see your private data. And we're making extraordinary advancements within the space of homomorphic encryption. We are also developing techniques for differential privacy and federated learning and secure multi-party computing. So technology can really step in and be part of the solution, but technology is not enough. In order to have good solutions, we have to educate, we have to be inclusive, we have to coordinate. Ultimately, I would say that the message is we need to start thinking about safety and trust as practice, not as patchwork.
Wonderful. I'm really grateful that all of my co-panelists have identified reasons for optimism, solutions to challenges. I would like to turn back to all of you in the audience again and pull up our second Slido question, which is, and I promise you we will talk about challenges, but also am curious, what gives you hope, or what is it that you picked up during these conversations that gave you hope that collectively we can address the challenges that are before us at this moment? Let's see what we get here. So Daniela, clearly technology as a solution is resonating.
I like women.
Women is good. Women is absolutely. There you go. Dialogue. We should have specified if British or American spelling to make sure we get... All right. So, Sarah, if I can turn back to you. We heard that there's reasons for optimism, but at the same time, there's a lot of uncertainty about the direction of technological change, about the global economy and the impact it will have on communities, on the state of our planet. How do you think about governance for an age of uncertainty? What is required of government? What is required of partners of government in paving a path through that uncertainty?
So with uncertainty, the realm of governance needs to change. We're used to governing things with understanding what the system looks like, how the interactions are between them, what is the scope of implementation of the government framework, and design it to that. But today we have an understanding that governance, regulatory framework, the mode of operation of government, and the role of government will evolve. So that's the first step. The first step, it is an evolutionary journey that we are on. Therefore, adaptability needs to sit at the heart of governance and at the heart of the role of government. The second aspect is understanding, and I saw this in the previous session here on the role of legislations. Legislations need to create foundational elements that bring to life what we're going to work on. So more of a skeleton framework rather than advisory framework. And it needs to adapt and grow as we know more. I'll take this to the realm of where we use governance in education, and I'll give that as an example. So curriculum in education is a form of governance of delivery of education and measurement of outcomes. When we came to launching our AI curriculum, we knew that AI as a tool will change, its use will evolve, what needs to be taught to students at different ages is going to change. Curriculum is meant to be consistent, its outcomes consistent. But what we chose to do is to have a living curriculum, a curriculum that changes year on year, a curriculum that invites feedback from teachers and educators on how to evolve, and more importantly, a curriculum that addresses that today, technology is in the hand of every single child and closely accessible in one way or another. And we made a concerted choice to educate children, not on artificial intelligence, but on robots as early as 4 years old, ending at 18 years old. The reason that choice was made is because we have an understanding that if they are not taught how to use it correctly, ethically, and critically, they will not be able to create the right impact of use. And we're going to fall into the same issues that we're currently combating, which is social media and the evolution of student well-being and child well-being and their growth and social interactions due to that. That takes me back to legislations. We need to build legislations that are adaptable. It is okay to change a legislation after a year or two if it is not relevant. And it is okay to start with a policy first and start governing it once we understand and know more.
Collaboration is one of the words that was up on the screen. And of course, many of the challenges we're confronting are global challenges. Are you sharing with your peers? Are you sharing your curriculum? More generally, how do we have to think about collaboration among governments when it comes, for example, to thoughtful legislation, curricula innovation? Does that happen? Does it happen sufficiently?
Collaboration is in the DNA of the UAE, and it includes also the mechanism by which we deal with foreign relations and our international collaborations. But why is collaboration important in this realm? Today, although the context of implementation is different, more and more our challenges and potential opportunities are sort of similar within the same realm or within the same scope. In education, we are all operating education systems that have been developed well over a century ago with mechanisms of measurement, and I'll speak broadly, there are instances of well-advanced education systems or education schools per se. But if we're not looking at it from a perspective of collaboration, understanding where the challenges are, and understanding what our individual journeys are, a lot of our engagement as a Ministry of Education here with our counterparts around the world is understanding how and why they design their solutions, what challenges they face in implementation, And very transparent conversations lie at the heart of most of our collaboration. And that will go back to designing better systems for each of our individual nations. And that takes me to what international collaboration really needs to look like. In this realm where globalization for the last few years has been strongly fought against, international collaboration and completeness does not remove national value and does not remove localized implementation. I believe that it strongly enriches it. It creates more opportunities for growth and allows us to each, as individual societies, to remain connected to who we are and our roots, but use the collaboration on how to expand and become better on issues that will continue to become global challenges. And I'll take that back to education. We talk about AI in education, but there are a lot of children around the world who don't have access to basic foundational education. And that's where collaboration needs to play a role to uplift entire societies around the world to an equal playing field so that we can then go and create the international ground for competition.
Fantastic. Daniela, you wanted to jump in.
I just wanted to jump in to say that I really admire this very adaptive and collaborative international approach to education of children. A similar approach is needed to the education of the workforce. Because as the tools that we are developing advance so rapidly, it is really important to make sure that the people who are in the workforce today do not get left behind. And so this creates a lot of opportunity to think about what education means for people in the workforce. And so we've been thinking a lot collaboratively and internationally with our partners about what different people working with different types of responsibilities in the workforce need to know. Not everyone needs to be an AI geek like me, but if you lead with AI, then there are certain things you need to know about AI. If you want to lead with AI, if you develop AI, you need to know different things. If you deploy AI, you need to know different things. If you use AI, so we need a kind of an AI literacy that targets everyone, but in different ways, according to the roles that people have. And this has to be an international conversation and collaboration.
And I can take on from that, because when we looked at AI literacy for children from K to 12, we also looked at AI literacy for educators and how they can use current AI tools to make their jobs a little bit easier. They do have a challenging job of fostering an entire generation. So I completely agree from an organizational perspective to look at AI literacy as an initial point, and we're continuing conversations as an organization, and again with our counterpart organizations around the world, on how to evolve the skill sets that are needed for the jobs that are in place. For us, educators will remain the heart of the education system. It is a human-driven system, and I can go on and on why we need it. But it's very important to keep at the core the evolution of organizations from a global perspective on the skills that are needed.
So using technology to enhance the ability of educators to drive learning as
Absolutely.
opposed to replacing them.
Absolutely.
Penny, I think there was conversation in several councils about how we ought to think about upskilling and this sort of symbiosis of mind and machine. What are your thoughts?
Well, so I was following that conversation very closely, and I found it really, really interesting. Because on one hand, we could sort of anticipate the type of jobs that's going to be, there in 5 years, 10 years or so. But on the other hand, it's really quite unpredictable, because I've got some statistics here that says that, let me get it. Yeah. This is according to, I think, the Future of Jobs Report 2025, that by the end of this decade, 44% of the workers' core skills will change. Automation will displace something like 85 million roles, but it will also simultaneously create another 97 million new ones, where 39% of today's core workforce skills will be made obsolete within 5 years. So it's going to be a lot of hard work for anyone working in that arena itself. But at the same time, I also read another statistics that says, let's be honest, 2.6 billion people remain offline today. I was kind of surprised by that number as well. And they are excluded from this digital renaissance. And if we fail to breach that divide itself, then every code that we write will further, accentuate
Exacerbate.
that divide.
Yeah.
And that we know that, any huge divide like that keeps going on that way is not sustainable, and it will lead to a lot of chaos, disruption, and of course, if you have no peace, then we cannot talk about prosperity or progress. So I think, there are many issues there to be addressed. But having said that, I also want to go back to what Sarah said earlier on about education, that, some of the core skill sets is beyond that of just hard skills, but also the soft skills. And I think, in fact, in an age, a very volatile age that we live in today, where it's hard to predict the future. And I noticed this time round, we talk 2030, not 2050, because we can't see, right? So 2030, just 5 years, yet there's no clear, visibility. I think what we need when we go back to school is really to relook at what is it that we are teaching in schools today. Are we teaching just hard skills, knowledge, information, which is actually Googleable or ChatGPTable today? Or, are we teaching the values of resilience, certain ethos or ethics, of hard work, of agility, and so on?
Yeah.
Because perhaps those skill sets, or you could say soft skills or value system, is even more important. And in the case of Singapore, I think some 10 years ago, we started within the primary school a curriculum called the Value Compass, in which we looked at what are some of the characteristics that will enable the child to become much more resilient and much more agile over time. And then, upon that, you layer the harder skill sets. And I think that is extremely important because, like I said, if we do not have a sense of prospering altogether, then we're also going to be suffering the consequences.
Well, it's the nature of rapid change that it's very difficult even to predict some of the skills. I moved to Switzerland from a university town in the US where I can promise you most of my faculty colleagues drag their children to coding classes on the weekends. There's a whole generation of kids now who want to have a conversation with their parents about whether that was time well spent. Andrea, you wanted to jump in, and then we'll go to Daniela as well and bring Dario in as well.
Thank you. And I think that under all these uncertainties, right, it's also the idea to reimagine. And some of these elements, we really need to think out of the box. And for these obsolete jobs, the creation of green and blue jobs, in a lot of the countries, if we see at the projections in Africa, for example, a lot of its population are young people, and many of them may be not connected. So here is a lot of the work on restoring our land, the restoration economy, restoring our soils, become a really good opportunity to engage them in this new economy and really make this transformation seeing this importance of giving value to nature as well. When we're thinking this systemic approach, and again, this system transformation is understanding the value of nature and all the services that it is providing to guarantee our living here. It's not at the end, it's to guarantee that stability, it's to guarantee that we will have that water and food security. So just to reconsider as well, that in many cases, all this education, and it's connected again to these nature elements as well.
I like that. So it's not just that change is happening to us. We can actually create the conditions in which all of a sudden new opportunities present themselves. And one way is actually to think much more about the value of nature. Daniela,
As a solution.
as a solution. And we get back to technology as in a moment as a solution as well.
So
Daniela.
I just wanted to add a more optimistic statistic, and this is from my economist colleague, David Otter, who computed that more than 60% of what people do today did not exist prior to 1948. So the jobs have been changing all along, and right now it's a moment of a very abrupt transition. And that's why we have to be especially careful to make sure everyone succeeds as part of this transition.
Could I just jump in and say that, but this is exactly what, I want to echo my colleagues here. This is exactly a very exciting time for all of us, because this is a time where some of us at least feel the urgency to create a new paradigm, a new economy narrative, and the opportunities to reshape ourselves into a world that is not just full of stress to chase the dollar and cents, but also to redefine what success, what life, really is about. And if you think about it, the technology itself should be able to help us in that light if we apply it with that mindset, with mindful leadership. But if we don't, then of course the opposite is true. And if we think about it again, when technology can amplify compassion, love for nature, inclusion, will cease to be a charity. It will, in fact, be by design.
Daria, I want to bring you back into the conversation. Clearly an important role for government to set the conditions for this. We talked about nature as capital. Of course, we talked about education, science policy. Are governments ready to play that role that can convert these challenges into opportunities, create the kind of future, or help create the kind of future jobs that strengthen our communities and our planet?
I'm actually having a great time here. It's so interesting conversation, and I love to see different approaches and talk about these kind of things. I think it all comes to humans. It all comes to humans. The uncomfortable position that uncertainty put us as humans is what is giving us the opportunity to create new things out of technology. At the end of the line, we are all connected. And that's a principle. That's a principle not only for technology, it's a principle for everything. So international collaboration, but every collaboration, it's so important for that, for spaces like this that allows us to collaborate, to tell us, to have the opportunity to listen to different stories, to listen to different experiences, to share our own experiences with the rest of the people and the rest of the countries. I believe that that's very, very important, and that's the solution for many things that we have today. Every 3 people, 1 is unconnected yet in the world. That's a real statistic. And if we don't work within the governments and from the governments as a policy to connect everyone, we are going to be excluding a lot of people, and that's a real problem. Excluding, it's a real problem. Connectivity should be for everyone, and with good quality and good access. And when it comes to HR, education is so important. Reskilling, upskilling, training people, it's very, very important. In Argentina, we are developing a cybersecurity arena in order to train people, to generate awareness, to tell the people what are the challenges, not only in the future, in the present. And that challenges are very important because those challenges are the ones that we have to face as a government. So we always try to put the government not as an obstacle, as sometimes is seen, but as a facilitator. Governments has a lot of power, a lot of information, a lot of tools to give to the citizens. And it's so important to put all that power on the service of the citizenship.
I think one factor that is contributing to this perhaps sense of being overwhelmed or the concerns around exclusion is that the technologies, the frontier technologies we're talking about, particularly AI, they seem to require ungodly amounts of capital and energy, and only the richest companies or perhaps countries can develop them. But Daniela, you can share with us what's going to happen next in the area of AI, and it sounds like things are about to change.
Not next, but right now. So right now, AI and intelligence is measured by scale. And it's mapped onto industrial scale installations that are very energy intensive and consume a lot of time and power. And that makes the development of the AI tools available to only a handful of players. And this also is a little bit restrictive because AI is relegated to the cloud. But we also have the physical world with its physical imprecisions, and we want to bring AI to the physical world as well. And so the optimistic news is that the scientific community, the AI community, has begun to develop alternative methods for creating AI solutions that don't just live in the cloud, but that also can impact the physical world, that understand physics, that do spatiotemporal correlations, which today's methods cannot do, that can really be applicable in the world, in the physicality of our world, and that are also safe and trustworthy and do not make so many mistakes. And so the way to think about it is that we are in a moment that is analogous to the shift from mainframe computers to personal computers. It used to be that computing was in the space of a handful of companies that had a lot of space to host big machines and could develop on those machines. When the personal computer was introduced, all of a sudden, computing became democratized. There was such a flurry of economic activity and broad benefit by all. And so with the new models for AI, which are now up to 1,000 times more energy efficient, think about it, 1,000 times more energy efficient than today's solutions, we will have AI that doesn't need the cloud. We will have AI that is performant, that does your work on your computer, on your phone, on your glasses, on your fridge and dishwasher and wash and dryer and any other device that we haven't invented yet. Because we can get AI in a small package at a small energy cost. And because of this kind of transformation, AI will change from a benefit for the few today to a benefit for the many tomorrow.
So dialogue is incredibly important, and I think we've all experienced it over the last couple of days, and we're demonstrating it right now, but we need action. The world needs to swing into action, because as you said, the future is now. I'd love to go to our third and final Slido question, which is, again, asking all of our experts, based on what you have been hearing, discussing, thinking about, what is one issue that we can most effectively move the needle on? Let's see if we can get some responses here. And then I'd love to hear from all of you a set of closing thoughts on what the action agenda looks like coming out of our conversations here in Dubai, and of course already with an eye towards the annual meeting in Davos. You clearly made an impact when it comes to education. Very good. Okay. Trust, responsible AI, regulation. Cyber hygiene. Women empowerment. Would you like to respond as you think about, for your government in the UAE, broadly beyond that, where is action most needed right now? What is your call to action for leaders representing different parts of the world, different industries, different knowledge domains?
So Our shared goal should not be about, since education is prominently highlighted there, our shared goal should not only be about developing resilient individuals or technologically savvy individuals, but to provide the necessary skills to be adaptable, to provide the necessary skills to be ethically grounded, and to have a value system that ensures that we continue collaborating together, understanding what are the challenges, and being able to harness those opportunities. And it is ever more important today to focus on these skills and on these values in the education process.
Wonderful, thank you. Penny, do you want to go next? We'll go in order.
Sure. I'm just thinking through, so many issues and so many things, but I think my wish, is for a new incentive framework, because all of us need a framework to relate to things, and we respond to those incentives, and we work it out in those ways. So I hope that, the new incentive framework that could arise from the future councils, would be one that is inclusive, that, takes into consideration well-being of society, of economy, and I think, that, however, requires mindful leadership. It's not just going to come like that, or discussing in silos. It's going to come from very strong leaders who understand human nature, who understands, society needs, who understand economy needs as well. So I think, for me, my wish list is that, we could have mindful leadership in action. I was very happy to hear from the GFC on leadership, from the Young Global Leaders Group. When I went in there, I saw that, on the board, when they no longer define leadership in the traditional sense of, whether it is consensus leadership or democratic or, authoritarian, but there was a whole plethora of different types of leadership, including spiritual and so on. It's interesting, but it shows the diversity, and also shows the fact that we need to have inner awareness, inner connectedness, in order for us to be able to have the steadfastness to make calm and wise decisions. And therefore, my immediate actionable recommendation is that perhaps, given that we are all leaders here, before every meeting, even forums like this, we could have 5 minutes of silence at the beginning, so that we can reconnect with ourselves, open up our minds, open up our ears, and go into a meeting without judgment, so that, we can truly foster the trust and connect with each other on a very, very genuine level. And I'll say this, the future is not ahead of us, it is actually arising through us. So even though we say, oh dear, what does the future look like? We're not sure, too many changes. The truth is that it's still in our collective hands.
Wonderful. Dario.
I will go back to the human. Collaboration, it's very important, because collaboration is building trust. And trust is the cornerstone for development as a society and as a humanity. So part of this is collaboration among each other.
Fantastic. Daniela.
So the future is not given to us. It is upon us to create it. And this means we should celebrate and embrace knowledge and scientific advancement. And today, it's very important to develop the tools that will provide better support for cyber issues, and that would develop AI, the AI that can run on any device in an energy-efficient way, so that everyone can participate. And in this context, I would like to observe that we are the only species so advanced, so aware, and so capable of building these extraordinary tools. But with this comes the responsibility to make sure that the tools are deployed in a way that is positive for ourselves, for future generations, and also for the neighbors of on this planet, for all the plants and animals we share this beautiful planet with.
Wonderful. Andrea?
Collaboration and trust. Now more than ever, we need multilateralism, a multilateralism that works, that it's oriented to action, to really deliver. And based on this idea, which I love it, I also believe that we need to connect our hearts with our minds to be these bold leaders that, and we are all leaders here. It's really an invitation to believe in your power, to reimagine, to repair, and to restore our institutions, our multilateralism, our corporations. We can all do this change together.
Wonderful. Well, I feel that over the last 3 days, we've really combined the spirit of the World Economic Forum to bring voices together and the optimism and future orientation of our hosts here in the UAE to recognize that the future is very much in our own hands. And I think this panel captured it perfectly. Would you please join me in thanking the panelists for their contributions?
And thanks our audience too.
And the audience, of course, as well. It is now my pleasure of inviting Maroon Kairoz, who is the Managing Director of the World Economic Forum, to deliver closing remarks for our gathering.
Thank you, David, and I echo your thanks to the wonderful panel for summing up so ably the spirit of the discussions that took place over 3 days. This meeting brought together over 500 experts from government, business, civil society, and media, alongside 150 of the world's foremost cybersecurity leaders. As interconnected and global challenges persist, it's more crucial than ever to engage in one another in an open exchange of approaches, viewpoints, and ideas. With this spirit of dialogue in mind, the meetings addressed trade and geostrategic shifts, innovation for inclusive growth, climate action, food innovation, health, the energy transition, and cyber vulnerabilities, setting the tone for our upcoming annual meeting in Davos in 2026. Let me share some examples of impact from the past 3 days. The forum's Jobs of Tomorrow report highlighted how 4 technologies, AI, robotics, advanced energy systems, and sensor networks, are set to transform 7 job families that together employ 80% of the global workforce. An output lab on scenarios for the global economy imagined how the pace of AI development could intersect with labor market conditions over the next 5 years. A resource hub with a key focus on financial education was launched to share best practices, research, and solutions to advance financial inclusion across regions. The Cybercrime Atlas Impact Report 2025 was launched, demonstrating how collaborative efforts can disrupt cybercrime. The 10 Emerging Technology Solutions for Planetary Health report put a spotlight on technology solutions for climate action, and we heard a lot about how this is interconnected and how important it is to preserve our planet. During an output lab dedicated to nature and climate, participants reimagined global economic systems to deliver shared prosperity within planetary boundaries. It is with the new connections we've made and the critical issues discussed over the past 3 days that we now close our meeting. As we move forward into the months ahead and as we advance on the ambitious goals outlined, I hope that these exchanges will inspire us all to take action. Before we close, let me take this opportunity to thank our very close friends in the UAE government. I can even say our family, Minister Gergawi, Minister Al-Ulama, Minister Al-Rumi, our very dear friend Ruqayya Al-Blushi, for all your partnership. And let me thank all of you for your engagement and commitment over the past 3 days. Let me also thank my colleagues at the World Economic Forum for your dedication and commitment. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your time in the wonderful city of Dubai.